What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it is my review of Replaced, the brand new game coming from Sad Cat Studios, which released on April 14th, 2026. The Steam description reads like this: expose the sinister secrets of Phoenix Corporation as Reach, an AI trapped in a human body. Set in alternate 1980s America scarred by nuclear catastrophe, navigate a dark cyberpunk thriller in this narrative-driven 2.5D platformer blending cinematic exploration with fluid, free-flow action. This game has been in the works for a while. We've heard so much about it. This is something I have kept my eye on, but wasn't really excited about it until the most recent Steam Next Fest demo that came out, and I made a video on it. Super excited to play this game based on that demo, and this is a game that has been in the works. So many trailers, so many delays, but the game is finally here and it's finally out, and I cannot wait to talk about Replaced. Super excited to talk about it, have a lot of thoughts on the game. So without further ado, let's dive in. So like always, I'm going to start with gameplay first and let you know what you will be doing in Replaced. So heading into the game, based on what I played as well from the Steam Next Fest demo, I thought this was going to be an inside style game, but with like actual gameplay, I guess. Because, you know, Inside and Limbo, those kind of games, you're basically just walking and running around. You're solving puzzles. It's a lot of puzzles. There's no combat in these games. But Replace is taking it a step further and adding combat. And from the demo, what I played, I was excited to see how they were going to take basically Batman Arkham combat in 2.5D and expand on that, because it did feel good in the demo, but I was just interested to see how they were going to add new tools to the belt, introduce new ideas, and the gameplay in Replace is a lot of fun. I do think it is a lot of fun. It feels really, really good to get good at this combat, because even though it feels very similar to the Batman Arkham style of combat, because it's not in 3D, it is a little bit different. I'd say the gameplay is a lot of fun to mess with and a lot of fun to master. There's a bunch of different enemy types they throw in, and it does throw a wrench in things every time that a certain enemy type gets added to a fight and you're not ready for it, and you have to kind of adapt on the fly to make sure that you're accounting for that enemy being introduced. So, like Batman Arkham, you have your standard hits, and then an enemy will walk up to you, you'll see a yellow kind of flash over their head, and then you can counter that hit. There's also hits that you can't counter, that you have to fully dodge. And then they introduce things like we saw in the demo with the gun. The gun does get introduced, and that is something where you kind of build that up as you do attacks, as you counter attacks. And then you can use that gun to, if you're far enough away from an enemy, you just pull it out and shoot and finish them off in one shot. Or if you're close enough, you get to pull off these really cool, stylish finishers. And all the animations that they have for these finishers are really, really good. I do think you do start seeing some of the same ones towards the end of the game. They don't really introduce any new ones. That's not really a huge issue, because the ones that are there are really well animated. They look really, really cool. But you do start seeing the same ones after a while, and I think that's something that I kind of expected. I didn't think that there'd be hundreds of different animations and hundreds of different finishers, but you do see the same ones after a while. But it does still feel really, really good, and because the animations are so good for these finishers, it always just looks so good and feels so good to pull off. And then as the game progresses, we'll kind of talk about this more in the progression part of the video. You do unlock new tools in the belt, some really cool ideas. I'm not going to spoil any of those. I do kind of want to stay away from that. But this game does end up adding a lot of tools to your belt that I did not expect. Even, you know, how games usually do it with, especially this style of game, is they'll introduce all the stuff kind of towards the middle to the start of the game. The start to the middle, that's kind of the part of the game where they'll introduce all these mechanics, and then the second half of the game, you have your entire tool belt to master. But this game does end up adding some mechanics even further into the game, like 2/3 into the game. It's still introducing new ideas, and it's really cool to see that there's a lot of ideas here. The one thing about the combat that I do think can be a little jarring is that there's not like a lot of enemy types, but there's enough that they can throw into one encounter that it can just feel like a lot. And it's not to the point where it feels frustrating and difficult to where you don't want to play it. It's the difficulty that you feel like you really need to lock in for, and it's a good challenge that you have to overcome. But sometimes a lot can be happening on the screen, and it's kind of hard to keep track. Maybe that's just me. I feel like sometimes it gets a little too overwhelming in these combat encounters. Now, it's not like you have 10 enemies in a room and they're all attacking you at the same time. What is really cool is that they'll kind of stand off to the side. You'll have 3 or 4 enemies at once trying to attack you, and then when you take out 1 or 2 enemies, you'll have more that just kind of smoothly slide into combat and just start fighting you. So it's not like you have 10 enemies, 15 enemies on the screen all fighting you at the same time, but the way that the certain enemy types can go alongside other ones can make a interesting combo, but also sometimes a frustrating combo. But it's not one that feels, it's a good challenge to overcome. But I do think sometimes with certain combos of enemy types, it does get a little bit overwhelming and can feel a little jarring at some points. But it's to the point where I wanted to master that encounter. It's going to take 1 or 2 tries to get through that encounter. You have stims that you can use throughout combat, and you can also progress, and we'll, like I said, talk about this more in the progression, upgrade the amount of stims that you have, so there's ways to heal and all that. But the base combat itself is a lot of fun. I could see, it getting a little repetitive. You just kind of jump into a room and boom, there's enemies there. I could see that being a complaint. For me, it's not, because I was having a lot of fun with the combat. The only complaint with it, like I said, being sometimes enemy types can combine together and the entire encounter can feel a little overwhelming. But I still did have a lot of fun with the combat. It feels really good to pull off. It's stylish. It's got great animations. And, there's gore too. So if you're close enough, you pull off a great finisher. You might even shoot an enemy's head off. I think that Replace Combat, it's enough to where there's sometimes you'll have back-to-back encounters, but it's kind of on purpose. But you never have, it's never combat encounter after combat encounter. They do spread it out in a way to where it doesn't feel repetitive and overwhelming. I think they spread it out enough to where you have your mix of puzzles, because there still are puzzles like you would see in an Inside. A lot of puzzles, in fact. Probably a good 50-50 balance of puzzles and gameplay. I think they do a really good job of keeping the puzzles intact while also making sure you get enough gameplay and don't weigh heavily too much on one or the other. I think they do a good 50-50 mix, and the puzzles are a lot of fun to figure out. You have to use all the mechanics that the game has taught you and look at your environment, which is beautiful. We'll talk about that later as well, to figure out what the game is trying to have you do. So I think the gameplay in Replace is a lot of fun. It's not the strongest part of the game for me. I think it is still great, but there's a lot of other parts of this game that I think are just so good. And the Replaced combat and the puzzles and just the gameplay as a whole is a lot of fun to play around with. Free flow combat. Instead of calling it Batman Arkham Combat, it's called free flow combat. And I think that this game pulls it off very well, especially in the different perspectives. Since it's not 3D, it's 2.5D. I think it pulls off that combat very, very well, and I had a lot of fun with the combat, with the puzzles, and then combining that all together. The gameplay as a whole, I had a lot of fun with. My biggest complaint with Replaced is the checkpoint system. It's not something that's going to bring this game down a whole lot, but the checkpoints in this game are just way too spread far apart. And I could see some people saying, it could be a skill issue. I definitely did die a lot. This game can get very challenging in combat, and also I definitely died a good bit with puzzles and platforming challenges. But The checkpoints are just spread way too far apart at some points, to the point where you will go, let's say, for example, you might do a combat encounter, go through a cutscene, and then do 2 more combat encounters. If you die at the end of that second combat encounter, it'll take you all the way back before the cutscene, and luckily there is a skip cutscene button, so that does kind of eliminate the most of the frustration there. You don't have to watch the entire cutscene again, you can skip it. But that's just a minor nitpick with it. There's a lot of times where you'll do, back-to-back puzzle platforming challenges. You'll die towards the end, and you have to go back 4 or 5 minutes before and do all that over again. It does get a little annoying, especially at the later parts of the game, where the game obviously does get a lot more challenging and difficult. You will be kind of being reset 4 to 5 minutes at a time at some points, and you'll have those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, really? I had a lot of those moments where the game set me back far enough for me to say that out loud. Maybe that was just my experience with it, but I did notice that a lot. I had a lot of those moments where I was just like, are you kidding me? I'm that far back? Maybe it's just me, but I don't know if it can be fixed through updates, or if it's just something that it was designed that way. I'm not sure. If they could just kind of reduce how far apart the checkpoints are, no problem at all. But there was a lot of those moments I had where wasn't happy with how far back I got set. And there's nothing wrong at all with the game being challenging or difficult. I expected to die. I did die. I got better. I learned from that. But having to replay multiple parts of the game at a time, go back 4 to 5 minutes at just not a lot of fun to do, especially in a game that I think it's short enough to where maybe you won't have that issue and that won't bother you, but there's certain parts of the game where combat encounters go on for a long time. You die at the very end, you have to go through and do it again. It can get a little annoying, but the checkpoint system, that's my biggest complaint with the game. Not sure if it's something that can be fixed, but it was something that I did have some annoyances with throughout my playthrough. Now we'll talk about progression, because there is some progression in this game, more than you would see in an Inside or a Limbo, that kind of game, but it's nothing crazy. Basically all the progression in this game is tied to side quests, which are really cool. So there are certain moments in the game is split up into chapters, and there are certain chapters where you will return to the hub. It's called the station. This is not something at all I was expecting from this game, and was kind of blown away when I saw it, because this just kind of opened the game up a lot more than I thought it would be. The station is a really cool place where you can explore. It's not a huge hub or anything like that, but there are areas that you can go and talk to NPCs and even get a few side quests throughout your playthrough. I do think you get upgrades, and these upgrades aren't anything crazy. They're, how much health you have, your health increases, or how many stims do you have, or it might increase one other kind of number throughout the game. And I think you might get upgrades like that through just the main story and playing the game, and you don't have to do the side quest. But you get a lot of them from the side quests, and these side quests, although very simple, usually it's just go to this area, find this thing. There's a couple puzzles and codes you have to solve in there that are really cool, but for the most part they are like pretty simple basic side quests, but the story behind them, I think for most of them, are really, really cool and fit the vibe and the tone of the game great. I think the side quests are really cool. Definitely not something I expected, but the progression kind of ties into that, because from these side quests you do get the rewards like increased health or increased amount of stims, that kind of thing. That's pretty much all the progression you're going to get in this game. I wasn't coming in expecting skill trees or levels and numbers, so I'm actually pretty happy with there being some progression, there being some reason to do these side quests, not only for the story, but you do get a reward out of it by getting upgrades. I thought that was really cool. The hub itself, like I said, really, really fun. You can even go play arcade games, and the hub expands and grows as you progress through the story, which is really cool, and it becomes a central part of the story as well. Definitely not something at all I expected from this game. And then also, like with these styles of games, Basically, if you are on a path, a linear path, main story, and you come across a thing where you have to go right, but you can go left, you're probably going to go left because you can find something over there. There's a lot of collectibles and journals and diaries and all these things that you can read to really flesh out and explore the world even more if that's what you want, if that's your kind of thing. You have this really cool scanner, and you bring up this kind of like, I don't know what the name of it in the game is, but just like a phone that you can scroll with, and keeps track of quests that you're doing, and you can find music tracks you can play off of that, and also read all the collectibles that you find. There's a lot of collectibles, so if that is something that you want to do and you want more story, more side stories through these journals and diaries and all this stuff that you scan, you have that in this game. There's a lot of that. It's done very, very well, I think, if that's something that you want to do to get the most out of the story and the world. That's something the game offers. So progression is nothing crazy, and through the game, like I said in the gameplay, throughout your game, you're going to have new abilities. You're going to feel like you're getting stronger, not only from doing the side quests and getting the upgrades and increasing your health and your stems, but also by getting new abilities as the main story goes on. So I think with this style of game, it does a very good job of making you feel like you are increasing your arsenal of tricks and getting stronger and getting better. It does a great job of that, and it does it in a wide variety of ways through exploring, combat, all that. I think it does a great job with the progression. It's nothing crazy, it's super basic, but I wasn't expecting anything crazy, so what I got was very welcome and was a lot of fun to progress with. Next, we'll talk about visuals and performance. If you look at this game, that might be what catches your eye. This 2.5D pixel art style is absolutely stunning. This game is gorgeous. The art team killed it. Everyone that was involved. I feel like the reason they took so much time to make this game was to make sure every little part of this game was detailed. I mean, there's so much detail. When you get into the city, I mean, all the billboards and things that you can read and just stop and look at. There's so much to look at in this game. And even when you're out in the wild, in the forest, the trees and the leaves blowing all over the place. I mean, this game is so detailed in its visuals, and the game is gorgeous. So it does a great job, I think, of environmental variety, which you do kind of see not the same environments kind of reappear, but the same style of environment, but there's always something different happening with it to where it doesn't look the same. It's something different always. They killed it. I feel like environmental variety is something that's super underrated in a lot of games. I don't want to be looking at the same thing over and over again, or the same colors over and over again. You gotta be able to spice it up and take the player different places, and this game does that. I mean, from cities to forests to facilities, it does it all. And like I said in the progression part of the video, the station, the hub, grows and expands and changes throughout the story, and it's always looking different. It's great. The visuals in this game are, it might be so far in April, Resident Evil Requiem's up there too with how good that game looks. Might be one of, if not the best looking games I've seen or played this year. It does really look that good. I got a couple clips to show that off. Performance as well is really, really good. I did not have a lot of issues throughout the playtime that I had in this game. A couple of stutters here and there, nothing game breaking, very, not very noticeable. I mean, you could see them, but nothing that was like, oh my gosh. I think I had a couple of glitches, but nothing game breaking. Typical things. It's not like entirely 100% polished, but definitely things that they can fix through a couple of updates. Nothing crazy at all. This game does run very well, and with how much happens on the screen and during combat, you would think going to have some performance issues with how much is happening on the screen. But no, during the combat, had no issues at all. Really, really enjoyed this game from a visual standpoint. This game looks gorgeous, and performance was great. Not a lot of issues with that. It was almost a perfect experience. Like I said, couple of stutters, couple of bugs, but for the most part, performance was great. Visuals look beautiful, look stunning. I mean, you could just sit and look at different screenshots and probably have a field day just looking at the detail in the environment, and the pixel art just looks so good. If that is what catches your eye when it comes to Replace, you gotta check it out just for that, because you are going to have a lot of fun looking at the environments and looking at what the art team was able to pull off with this 2.5D art style. So visuals are fantastic and the performance is great. And now we'll talk about the story, which alongside the visuals is my favorite part of this game. This game has a fantastic story. I read the Steam description at the start of the review to give you a quick plot premise, but again, I'll kind of repeat it. You're playing in an alternate version of America in the 1980s, and you take control of REACH, which stands for Research Engine for Altering and Composing Humans, an AI unwillingly trapped in the human body of its creator, Warren Marsh. That plot premise, for me at least, grabbed me right away. That is such a cool plot premise, and there's going to be no spoilers in this review, even though I really want to talk about what happens in this story because it is so good. There are twists and turns that you do not expect, but I think that this game and its story released at the perfect time, especially with where the industry is at with all of the news about AI. This released at the perfect time because there's so much happening with all of the generative AI stuff that's going on, which I don't really know a whole lot about. I hear about it all the time. I try to learn about it, but I know a lot of people have issues with AI, and for good reason. We don't want AI taking people's jobs away, especially when gaming is such a great thing for people to be able to express creativity, and artists and writers and all these people that have made so many good games in the past. We don't want AI to be able to take over and take people's jobs away. People that are so creative, we don't want that. And this game, with its story, it hits on the subject of AI in such a great way and uses its story to explore all these different ideas and kind of conflicts when it comes to that. And it has great writing, no voice acting, which I think would even level up this story even more if this game had voice acting, but it's so good without it. But I can just imagine the game with it. It'd be really interesting to see how much better this game's story would be with voice acting, even though it's already so good without it. So it's all text-based, you're going to be doing a lot of reading, all the dialogue is experienced and taken in through reading, but the characters that you meet, the writing that they get, oh, it's so good. It's so good. The main character and the journey that he goes on, and then all the characters you meet, side characters, main characters, it's so good. I think that this story so far might be one of my favorites of the year, just because of the themes and topics that it decides to tackle, and the characters that it introduces, and how they're so likable, even though you don't have any dialogue, or, you know, I guess audible dialogue, no voice acting, it's all done through text. That's how you know the writing is so good, is you don't have voice acting to fall back on. And even though there's a lot of instances where even if you have the greatest voice actors in the industry pulling off these parts, the writing can always hold it back if the writing isn't good and the parts and the things that they're saying sound stupid. But without voice acting in this game, it pretty much has to rely all on the writing, and the writing has to be good, and it's good. It's very good. It's very reminiscent of a game from last year. I'm going to shout out Citizen Sleeper 2. There's no voice acting in that game. It's a lot of dialogue and a lot more dialogue, so it's not a direct and exact comparison because this game does not have nearly as much dialogue as Citizen Sleeper 2 did, but it's all in the same vein of it has to have really great writing to be able to pull off the story that it wants to pull off, and I think it pulls it off beautifully. The story, like I said, so many twists and turns. This game actually ran a lot longer than I thought it was, and I was a little worried about it. When the game first came out, I started playing it. I usually like to look up full game playthroughs to track my progress, and I was seeing, 8 to 10 hours, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot longer than I thought. That was before I knew the game even opened up with gameplay and with the station being the hub. I thought this was going to be a 4 to 5 hour game, something like you would see with an Inside. It took me, I think the in-game clock said 10.5 hours to roll credits, but after experiencing the story and all the content that I did get to experience, I'd say that 10.5 hours was well worth it. The story is so good, and I would definitely recommend it if you are interested at all in the plot premise that I just gave out a couple minutes ago, and you want to see where this game goes when tackling topics like AI. I would 100% recommend playing this game for the story. The story is so good. The world itself is great to exist in and be immersed in, and I have nothing bad to say about the story. I liked the whole thing all the way through. I really enjoyed where it went and all the ideas that it had. The writing is great. Story is fantastic. I really enjoyed the story in Replaced. Had a lot of fun with it. So what is the verdict on Replaced? I've been using a new scale for the last couple reviews I've done, so very quickly that scale goes from masterpiece, amazing, great, good, okay, and bad. 6 words, 6 adjectives on a scale that I can use one word to describe a game. And for Replaced, I would say Replaced is amazing. I had a lot of fun with this game. The gameplay and combat is a lot of fun. Can get a little overwhelming at some points, but overall the entire gameplay combat experience with the free flow combat feels really good, and it has that challenge to it with encounters to where you want to get better at it. You want to lock in and read all the enemy types and make sure that you're focused on the counters and the dodges to be able to very easily get through all these combat encounters. The puzzles and platforming, a lot of fun too, very creative there, had no issues with that. I'm not even a puzzle person, I suck at puzzles, but I was having a lot of fun with the puzzles in Replace as well. The visuals, stunning, gorgeous. Like I said, the 2.5D pixel art style, the environments that they're able to create, and the detail, they did a killer job with that. Performance was great as well. The checkpoint system being the big complaint, not enough to bring this game down at all, but it is there. It is a issue that I had an issue with throughout my playthrough of Replaced. And then the story is really, really good, with great characters and great writing, and a story that I think fits perfect in today's industry, today's gaming industry. It released at the perfect time to tell a story that I think fits with what is going on and is very, very active, I guess is the best word to use, in the gaming industry right now with how it tackles the topic of AI. I really enjoyed Replaced. Have a couple nitpicks here and there, have a couple issues here and there, but overall, as the entire experience goes, it took me 10.5 hours to get through it, and I enjoyed all of it. It got better as the game went. It does start a little slow, but if you stick with it, the entire experience is a amazing experience. I really enjoyed Replaced. I would absolutely recommend it to anyone if this game interests you at all. If you liked Inside, and Batman Arkham, this is the perfect game for you. But if you like Inside, I think that's probably the best kind of representation or comparison to it, but at the same time it's different. It does different things. It's a longer game, it introduces more ideas. It's not as short and concise as Inside is, and Inside's really, really good. If you couldn't tell, I've been mentioning Inside this entire video, this entire review. I love Inside. This game takes what Inside does so well and expands on it in a lot of ways. It tells a great story, has great gameplay, visuals are stunning, overall, this is an amazing experience. So that is going to do it for the review. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out, talking about Replaced. Let me know in the comments, did you love Replaced? Did you hate Replaced? Have you gotten through it yet? Are you thinking about checking it out? Let's talk about Replaced down in the comments. I had a lot of fun with it. It is on Game Pass. That's how I played it. So if you do have Game Pass, it is available there. It's going for, I think, $20, which is, again, a crazy price for an indie studio. And I would absolutely recommend it at that $20 price tag. Really enjoy Replaced. If you couldn't tell, I had a lot of great things to say about it. I would be surprised if it somehow doesn't make my top 10 at the end of the year. I feel like it's going to stick in that top 10. We'll see what comes out. There's a lot of great games coming out, but I don't think I'm going to forget Replaced anytime soon, especially with that story. That story is so good. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I'll talk to you later.